Her triumphs.
I took a group of women that didn't believe in themselves, and I just believed in them.
Her trials.
I never wanted to go to practice. I was losing a ton of weight.
Her story.
I just put my faith in God and just trusted the system.
Her why.
I want people to see what I did and say, oh, that's so awesome. I'm going to be better than that. That would be how I hope that this journey ends.
This is Her Why, where we tell the stories from BYU women's sports. Here is your host, Lauren McLean.
We're so glad you've joined us for Her Why, where we celebrate the women who make BYU sports great. Joining us now is Gretchen Hoekstre, record-breaking thrower for the BYU Track and Field team. Thanks so much for being here with me, Gretchen.
You're so welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Let's start with the Big 12 championships. What were practices like leading up to that meet?
Honestly, it was cold and it wasn't super great. I wasn't having the best practices, but my coach and I really we knew that there was something big in the system, in the tank, and I was super excited about it. And so the first day we threw shot, I ended up throwing at 12:30 in the morning because there were so many weather delays. We were at Baylor, and so the weather was just not the best, but it worked out. And I didn't throw super well. I was super anxious, and I was just trying to think about how can I just come in and just see what happens. And there were a lot of big dogs in the flight. Yeah. Big 12's throws are really good. It's probably one of the top 3 conferences in the country. And so going in, I knew that if I were to place, I would have to show up. And so I just, pushed down the anxiety and said, okay, I'm going to do what I can do and go from there and see what happens. And it ended up being pretty cool. Yeah. It was awesome.
You obviously had some nerves, but
definitely.
Were you feeling good going in the event?
I was.
You step up and then you're like, all right.
I really was. Yeah. I got to the ring and I had, in my warm-ups, I had some really good throws. And I was just trying really hard not to get ahead of myself and not get almost too excited and get shaky and nervous. Yeah. And so my thought process going into the ring was okay, I'm just going to push all of my anxiety down. And I'm not going to feel it, and I'm just going to nice and easy go. My first throw was really close to a PR. I was number 3 on the top 10 board at BYU before this, and it felt great. I wasn't sure how great it felt. Yeah. But I saw the mark, and I knew that I was going to make finals. I knew that I was going to place. Yeah. And so that second throw, I have no clue how far it goes. I save them all, and I just go with it. But on that second throw, it came out of my hand and I knew it was something big. And I looked back at my coach and I ended up jumping up and down and I ended up falling on my butt. And so that wasn't so great. But it was such a fun experience to be able to do that. And my coach and I told him my freshman year, my goal here is to get a school record. That's it. And, I was 18, fresh from small town USA. And I said, I want that school record. When I saw that mark, there was just this flood of emotions of it took 5 years. A lot has happened in the last 5 years, but it really it was worth every ounce of effort that I've ever put in.
Did you know you broke the all-time school record?
I have had that number in my notes on my phone since, actually one of my teammates broke it a couple years ago. And so it was 56-13 before when she threw it. She threw it at regionals her senior year. And then I had that number in my head, in my phone, on sticky notes in my locker. Wow. That was the goal all year long. And when I hit it, it was really this incredible wave of emotions, like I was saying. It was just I just knew that I had it, and it was so cool.
When you let go of it, were you this feels good?
So usually I have a tendency to kind of shrug back at my coach, I don't know. Yeah. But I took a big breath, and you could see, if you watch the film, my eyes were super wide, and I was like, oh my gosh, I think that's it. and so I looked back at him, and you could see in everybody's eyes there that oh, that was big. That was a big throw. And it ended up putting me 29 in the NCAA, which usually it would probably put me top 15, but it's an Olympic year and all the COVID seniors and everything like that. But it was pretty huge right away.
I love that. You mentioned, because you put that video of you and your coach on your Instagram. Yeah. Which is so funny.
It was so funny.
It's so amazing.
It really was.
You said the most athletic moment of my life and then the least
within 30 seconds of each other, yeah.
How would you say your coach has helped you become one of the best throwers in BYU history?
He has believed in me from day one. He really, every time that I have told him that I have a goal, he has been my biggest supporter. And there have been moments where I didn't know if I was going to get, I've had injuries and COVID and mental health issues and physical health issues and family problems and all those things. And through it all, he was like, nope, like I know you're going to get it. You belong on the top of that board, and you've worked hard enough, and you can do this. And it was really this, it was surreal almost, because through everything, he was right there and willing to push me when I needed it and willing to let off when I needed it. And he knew exactly what I was capable of through it all, which I know everybody says that their coach is amazing and everybody looks at it that way, but he really, he has been everything I've needed through all of the experiences that I've had, academic, athletic, everything in between.
He was everything you needed as a coach.
Yep.
You ended up placing second overall.
Yes. Yeah.
Were you happy with that placement?
I was so happy with that. I think I came in 8th. And so I was not supposed to do super well. I was not supposed to place. There was a girl who almost hit the Olympic trial qualifying marks. Really solid competition. And so I had no expectations going in. I was just going to do everything that I could, and then
leave it all out there.
Yep. Leave it up to God and go from there.
I love it.
Yeah.
You grew up in Seaside, which is a pretty small town in Oregon, right on the coast. You mentioned it's where Goonies was filmed.
Yeah. So
Love
the scene
that.
where they're like driving and the big rock in the background, and then the actual Goonie house, I live like 15 minutes from both.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you get random tourists there all the time?
All the time, yeah.
Because
so
of Goonies?
it's actually kind of funny because the population of the town during the winter and the fall is like 15,000 probably, but in the summer it goes up to like 30,000.
Wow.
Because everybody has their summer homes, because it's on the beach and there's mountains and there's hiking, and it's just this beautiful area that everybody wants to be at during the summer.
And they want to find some treasure and some ships.
Exactly. Yeah.
What was it like for you growing up there? Because that's a small town.
It's a small town.
15,000?
Yeah. So I graduated from a class of 99.
Wow.
My brother's graduating class was 78, and that's about more closer to average. And I remember being told in 7th grade, nobody from our school goes D1. No one does that. So like, don't even go for it.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the moment for me that I decided I was going to. I didn't care what sport it was. But the weird thing about a small town is if you do one sport, you do them all.
Yeah.
So I played volleyball and basketball and softball, and I did track, obviously. But I was also in the band and the choir and the robotics team, and I did all of those things too, which is so like, that's something that a lot of my teammates never got to experience. And I'm so grateful that I was. But when I started throwing, I was like, this is it. This is
really?
the sport. I had a coach at an invitational, and he came up to me and he goes, hey, like, what's your plan for college? And I was like, I have no idea. And I think I was a junior at the time. And I was ranked, like 150th in the country.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is your sport. And he just said, like, if you want to work with me, let's do it. And I worked with him a couple times. His name is Lex Strom. He's awesome. And he just said, you could go D1 in this. If you decided that this is what you wanted to do, you could do it. And I was like, there's no way. Like, that's insane. There's no way I could do that. And I ended up coming in on a scholarship, and as a first generation college student, that was a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
That was something it was really like, again, surreal. I never thought that would be an option that I would even maybe have.
What was that like for your parents? Because you mentioned first generation college student, tiny little town.
Yep.
So much is happening for you. What was the reaction of your parents?
My parents are my biggest fans. They really are. They're at every meet. You can hear them in the crowd. My dad, at Hayward Field, it's one of the biggest facilities in the country, full. You could hear his voice through the crowd. And they were jumping up and down and so excited for me, because that's really like, that was the way that I was going to pay for college.
Yeah.
And they they paid for private coaches. They pushed me to my limits when I didn't want to be pushed.
Yeah.
And they knew exactly what I needed, and they were my biggest support system, and they still are. But it really, like, for them, they always say that they're just so proud of everything, because my dad, I guess my grandfather was the first person to graduate from high school in his family. Wow. My dad barely graduated from high school, went straight into trade school, didn't even think about college. And so this idea that that I would be able to go D1, that I would be able to go to a school as prestigious as BYU. It wasn't even on the radar until somebody said, like, hey, this is an option. You could do this. And it really just kind of blew up from there. It's just so cool.
That's special.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You committed to BYU your senior year of high school.
Yes.
You were also recruited by Oregon, though. Oregon State, Air Force, Utah State, Nevada, Concordia.
Yeah.
What made you choose BYU?
That's kind of a funny story, actually. So the way that track and field works is coaches don't usually recruit. They wait for people to contact them, and then they kind of go from there.
Yeah.
And so I sent an email to the coach, and I was like, hey, like, I thought about doing this because my uncle was like, send an email. Like, just try it. And I was like, that's crazy. And he's like, just try it. See what happens. And so I did. I sent the email, and about 45 minutes later, I get this phone call, this Utah number, this 385 number. And I was like, what is going on? So I answer it, and he goes, hey, Nick is my coach. He goes, hey, do you want to come here? And I was like, I would love to. I'd love to take a visit. And he goes, okay. He goes, I don't usually say this to people, but I feel like you need to be here. He goes, I saw your name pop up and it was like glowing in front of me, and I knew like you're supposed to be here. Obviously it's your decision, but I feel like you should be here. And I had never had a coach say anything like that to me. And so when I took my official visit here, I met a girl who's now my best friend. I was the maid of honor in her wedding, and I wanted to be like the girls that were here. I wanted to look like them. I wanted to feel like them. I wanted to have the camaraderie that they have. And there were schools with great programs, with great facilities, even, some even better than BYU. But there was no list that I had to check everything off. It was this feeling of, hey, this is where you need to be. And through all the really hard moments and through the things that happen as you're a college athlete, it's just not easy. I definitely know that that's true. This is where I was meant to be, and with whatever force was telling him that, and that told me that this is where I need to be, and I'm so grateful that I've been able to be here.
You still feel like that holds true?
Yeah, I do.
That's
I really
so cool.
do. Yeah.
Did you ever feel that pull to stay close to home? So you had offers from Oregon and Oregon State, or was it like this all just kind of fell into place?
It really just fell into place.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing with it was so crazy. I had a cousin who was a high jumper here, and she was like, hey, like you're not going to beat this kind of programming. The perks of being an athlete at BYU are huge. Yeah. And I'm so incredibly grateful for it all. And the puzzle pieces have just hit every time. And it's just, this is where you need to be. This is the moment. This is the support system you need. These are the people you need in your life. So it's pretty cool.
So amazing.
Yeah.
All right. I want to know, how did you first get into throwing? You mentioned you played volleyball, you played basketball, you did robotics, you did everything. So how'd you get into throwing?
That's also kind of a funny story. So I started weightlifting when I was 11 years old. Totally fell in love with it. I love the idea of having something that no one else can take away from me. And I had these strength coaches, they were married at the time, in middle school, who were like, hey, like you should like come do this, because my brother was on the football team, so he lifted, and they're like, hey, like come do this. And I was like, okay, cool, totally fell in love with it. And Coach Leary, she was one of the coaches there. She was like, hey, you need to try throwing my freshman year. And I was like, no, that's a stupid sport. I'm not going to throw I'm going to throw 3 times. I'm going to do something 3 times and then I'm done. Like, that's dumb. And she's like, no, just come to one practice. And it took a couple years to do it. So I didn't start throwing until my sophomore year in high school.
Okay.
And she's like, one practice, that's all I'm asking. I don't care. Like, you don't have to sign. You don't have to commit to doing a whole season. One practice. And I showed up and I had this coach who threw at the Coast Guard Academy. And he was like, hey, like, you could do this. And I was like, nah, that's crazy. and so I really just fell in love with it. The first time I touched an implement, I was like, okay, this is actually way cooler.
I could do this.
This is way cooler than I thought it was going to be, actually. My goal was to break the school record, which at the time it was 39 feet, 6 inches. And I was like, I'm going to do that by the time I graduated. And I threw 40 feet at my 5th meet ever.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, this is it.
You shattered all the throwing records, didn't you, at that school?
Yeah, all of them, by quite a significant margin. The discus one was 125 feet, I think. Wow. And I ended up throwing 162 in high school. So it was pretty cool.
You're like, good luck, who's ever following my shoes.
That's what I'm hoping to do here too, but we've got some time.
So you do discus, shot put, and weight throw.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell us the biggest differences between those three.
So the shot put and the discus, the biggest difference is, first of all, the placement of the implement. With the discus, you hold it out from your body, and with the shot put, you have it on your neck.
Yeah.
And so the discus is a pull, the shot put is a push, and the ring is smaller.
Okay.
And so, but the weight throw is like the hammer. It's really only an American thing. It's like the hammer, but it's short and heavy, and so you spin around in a circle and you throw. And that's one that I had never really. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to focus on it. And I started it this year, and I was like, okay, well, this is kind of fun. And I ended up, I think, number 7 or 8 on the top 10 board here, which is pretty fun. And I have another year to maybe see if I can make nationals or anything like that. But yeah, kind of fun.
In your bio, you said you love to weight lift.
I do.
So very similar to some of the things you're doing. What's your favorite part about it? Why do you love it?
Really, because it's something that no one else, you can't take it away from me.
Yeah.
That my strength is something that it's mine, and it doesn't matter if it's if I'm on a team or any of those things. It's individual, and it just matters what I can do in that moment. And I'm pretty strong for a girl, and so I'm pretty strong for anyone, if I'm honest. And so that's something I'm good at it too, and so that's helpful to the situation.
Oh yeah.
But it really just you're pushing your body to the limit. And it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters.
Yeah.
And I love that.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Gretchen tells us about her struggles during college and her passion about body positivity. This is Her Why. Welcome back to Her Why. I'm Lauren McLean with BYU Track and Field thrower Gretchen Hoekstre. So COVID hit during your first year of college. How did that affect your mentality when it came to athletics?
It was chaos. So we were actually 2 meets away from the first meet of the year, and that's when they canceled everything. We were going to go to Arizona, and they said nothing. Everybody's done, and BYU shut down pretty hard.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of people that I competed with who said, I'm done. I'm not gonna keep going through this. This is a lot. And it was a lot. And so there was a few moments in there where I didn't know if it was worth it. I didn't know if it was worth going through. Obviously now I'm grateful I did, but COVID messed a lot of things up. My sophomore year, I came back from the break. They started to lift some restrictions, but in the weight room, you had to have a mask on at all times. Any kind of training, at meets, you could take your mask off before you stepped into the ring, but then you had to put it right back on immediately after. They would scratch throws if you didn't. It was, woo. Yes, woo was right. It was a lot. And people were COVID tested weekly. I did not like the COVID test. The swab in my nose bugged me. And so I got vaccinated very quickly so I could avoid that. But to go to regionals, you had to. So I made regionals my I guess that was technically my redshirt freshman year, and that was even more intense. We were at Texas A&M, and it was probably about a year after everything really shut down, and they were still with the masks, and it was 100 degrees and humid, and it was pretty miserable, and everybody was tested or vaccinated or both, and all of these things, and there was just chaos all the time with everything. And I remember there was a couple times I ended up getting COVID, and it was miserable. Yeah, it really was. And the first time I got it was awful, and it was right as the season was kind of getting going, and it took me out for 2.5 weeks, and it was a crazy way of starting things. It was nice because NCAA was awesome about giving people their eligibility back. Yeah. And so I didn't miss out on a year. That year I actually ended up tearing my pec. And so, just training and coming back from that and everything, it was a lot.
You mentioned that you tore your pec, and then you were fighting through depression that year as well.
Yeah.
How were you able to get through all of those things? Because that's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. I have a great support system. My mom has received many crying phone calls, which I think most student athletes can say the same. But I think mental health is huge within the NCAA right now. I know this is, trigger warning, but the second most common cause of death within student athletes is suicide. The first being accidents. This is something that's changed in the last year and a half. A lot of student athletes feel that they're alone. And after COVID, you couldn't socialize in the same way. Yeah. We weren't around teammates the same way. There wasn't that human connection that we're built for.
Right.
And it was terrifying to feel that you were alone. And I've been medicated since my sophomore year in college. And my mom is medicated, my dad is medicated, a lot of my teammates are.
Yeah.
And I feel like the stigma that's around mental health needs to be torn down.
Yeah.
Because we're not alone, and we're not the only people who are facing those issues and having those feelings and facing those struggles. And there's just this on social media, everybody, you only see the perfection in people's lives. You only see what's going on great. And when that's all you're seeing, then you feel that there's something wrong with you. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's so important for people to feel that it's okay to struggle. And that if you're not struggling, you're not human. And everybody is having these thoughts and issues and we're living the same life. Everybody's living their life for the first time. And as hard and scary as that is, we have to do it together.
Right. Mm-hmm. You've talked a lot about being positive and never giving up on social media as well.
Yeah.
What prompted you to start having those types of conversations publicly on your social media platform?
So I am not a small person by any means. I'm 5'11", 240 pounds. And I have received a lot of hate about the way my body looks. I've had a lot of people say some really nasty things just because of the way my body is built. My dad is 6'6". My mom is 5'10". I don't have a small body. There's no way that I could ever be a petite person. But there's this almost like you versus me mentality that like, oh no, my body is better. Your body's ugly and there's something wrong with you. But this is the body we're given.
Right.
You're given one thing in this life that you get to keep. And if you hate yourself, and this is something that I will preach until the day I die, that if you hate yourself and you hate your body, that you will spend your life hating the one thing that God has given you.
Yeah.
That's it. You will hate yourself because somebody told you that your arms are too flabby or your legs are too big, or you shouldn't have stretch marks or your cellulite's gross. Like, that's insane to me. I don't want to spend my life living like that.
Right.
I don't want to spend my life looking in the mirror and saying, oh, I could fix this and this and this, or maybe if I ate different or I exercised different or all of those things. My body is functional. My body can do things that a lot of people's bodies can't because of the way that I've treated it. I don't force myself to eat less because that's what I've been told that I need to do.
Right.
I don't force myself to not eat carbs or to eat in a certain way or to work out in a certain way because that's what the world is saying, like, you need to look like this.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, that idea has become more and more important to me. When you are in a spotlight, like the way BYU athletes are, and especially high-level BYU athletes are, you get a lot of hate. You get a lot of really nasty things said about you. And I refuse to live my life scared. I refuse to live my life in a way where I don't feel okay with who I am. Because I feel like I'm a pretty cool person.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm fun to be around. I feel like I'm funny. I feel like I'm smart. I have a bachelor's of science from Brigham Young University. And that's not something that everyone can say. And so I'm not going to hate myself because I don't have everything that other people feel that I should have.
Why do you think it's so hard for girls and women, I feel like especially, to see themselves and their bodies as good enough or worthy? Why do you think that's a thing?
Oh, that's a really good question. Because we live in a society where women's worth is based off of what they can bring to men, which I know that's a little controversial, but a woman's worth is not based off of how someone else perceives them. And it goes along for men as well. You know, a man's worth is not based off of what he brings to the table. Your worth does not change from day to day. It doesn't change based off of how much money you make or how much weight is on the scale or the way your body looks or the way that you make other people feel. That's not, your worth is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. It will never change.
Right.
And I think that we put so much emphasis on what we can do to change who we are that we don't think about changing the world around us. That when you are raised in a society that tells you that you need to look a certain way, and that if you don't, there's something wrong with you, it's pretty hard to break away from that,
Right.
from that idea. And it's something that I think it takes people a long time to learn
Yeah.
and to unlearn all of those things that have been forced into your brain for years and years and years. And it kind of comes back to that, like, do you want to spend your life hating yourself? Do you want to spend your life doing that? And until you decide that you are not going to do that anymore, you're going to keep listening to these voices that come in and tell you that there's something wrong with who you are and what you stand for and what you believe and the way you make people feel and the things that you put out in the world because of the way you look. When it has nothing to do with that.
Right.
It has nothing to do with your physical beauty. Obviously, it's nice to feel attractive and it's nice to like the way you look, but that's not determining your worth.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of what young women especially feel.
I love that you embrace your strengths. So I
Yeah.
want to know, like physical strength.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Thank you.
I look at women like Serena Williams and I'm like,
Incredible. Yes.
whoa,
Yes.
it is just
Yeah.
amazing. How have you been able to embrace that idea of being strong as a woman and that it's something to be celebrated?
First of all, I think it's something a lot of women are scared of. And so I love celebrating it because it's something I'm not scared of it.
Yeah.
And when you have a body that is functional, that can move weight, that can do things like Serena Williams does, then you're going to have people who are uncomfortable with it. And you're going to have people who say, you should not look like that. Or you look like a man, or you are not feminine. When I feel like I have become more and more feminine, the stronger that I've gotten. I have embraced my femininity as I have continued to build strength, both physically and mentally.
Yeah.
And I think that is what makes somebody who they are. Being able to embrace their strengths and being excited about them and then being excited about other people's strengths. That's my favorite thing, is seeing somebody else excited about whatever it is that they're doing. Even if I have no idea what it is, I will root for you and do the best I can to support you, because that's what this world is about. That's what it's about. Being part of a community. And when you are willing to embrace who you are and also embrace whoever anybody else is and however they feel, I think that is so vital to the way that we live and the way that we're supposed to live in a community.
Well, you are amazing. So it's, wow. I feel like everyone write these down, put them on their fridges. It's no wonder that you graduated with a bachelor's in exercise and wellness.
Yes.
Clearly, you're
Yes.
very passionate about it. What's next for you in regards to your major and what you want to do with it?
So I want to be a strength coach.
Okay.
It kind of goes along with the same lines we were talking about. I want to work with women because so many women are told you're not supposed to do that. Don't get too bulky. Don't do all those things. I have never seen a bulky woman who was not trying to be bulky.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna look like you could step on a bodybuilding stage just because you did some curls and that kind of stuff. The way that female hormones work, strength training, resistance training, cardio, everything in between, is so important for our bodies. We're not supposed to be sedentary.
Right.
We're not supposed to live lives where we just sit in a chair and we look pretty and we knit and we crochet, which I do love knitting and crocheting, but that's not the only thing that we should be doing. I love the idea of women feeling strong and women loving the things that they can do. I know we came from very strong individuals. Very, very strong women who gave birth without any help, women who could do incredible feats of strength, who were farmers, who worked in the heat, who did these amazing things while pregnant, while breastfeeding, while having babies. And I think that is what we should celebrate. That's incredible. That's the kind of woman I want to be. Obviously, I would prefer not to work in the sun all day and do that kind of stuff. But I want to be a woman who makes other women feel that they can be strong and that they can be exactly who that they want to be.
I'm here with Gretchen Hoekstre, record-breaking thrower for the BYU Track and Field team. Gretchen, you are an incredible woman.
Thank you.
Incredibly strong in many, many ways. And good luck with everything you have moving forward in the sport and in your future. You're going to do amazing things. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks also to Annie Robinson and Sydney Simpson for producing this episode. Cleon Wall is the senior producer. Her Why is a production of BYU Radio. You can download and listen to all episodes of Her Why on the BYU Radio app or wherever you find podcasts. Her Why is a production of BYU Radio.